We traveled across the world for IVF.
But we never expected this outcome.
Welcome back to Faith, Fertility, and Us. I'm Sarah Hand, and this is my husband Brady, and we are going to talk about our experience and journey of doing IVF in Barbados.
To recap, back in May of 2023, we had the miscarriage. After that, we went through the DNC process, and then it was good multiple months where Sarah and I weren't on really the same page of what we wanted to do next, if that was going to be a round of IVF or what that looked like. After a bunch of going back and forth, we did decide that we wanted to go with another round of IVF, and that's where we had the open book of where we wanted to go, what we wanted that process to look like. We had multiple different consultations, and Barbados was one of them.
My coworker told me about Barbados, and at first it was just like, hold on, what? Like, that's a possibility? Right away it kind of felt like a scam. You're like, are you sure you can go to a different country and like get this procedure done? Is it safe? Like all the things. It was just like very weary. But then we actually took that first step and we went to their website, we typed in our information, and then right away we got an email back from the clinic, and I was in total shock. They personalized that email. You could tell that they actually read our infertility story because they actually addressed that in the email, and no other facility had ever done that for us.
Plus, I would say they set up a consultation probably within the first week. Granted, all the rest of the facilities that we had sent our inquiries to online, they were months out. So getting this opportunity to talk to somebody within a week from a doctor at that facility, that was pretty big in our eyes.
At the consultation with the doctor from Barbados, we both were blown away because he was the first one that addressed an autoimmune protocol and was going to do something different that none of the other clinics were going to do. And that like eased our mind because we had already tried one time, and our clinic that we went to, they said that they wouldn't change anything because they didn't need to. But after all of the research that we did, we knew that we needed to do something different in hopes to have an actual like result. And he just said everything that we wanted to hear. He was knowledgeable and just really like eased our mind that there is another way that could help us get to our dream family.
So along with that, we also had to include what the cost would look like versus going to Barbados versus staying in the United States. Total, including our Airbnb, our flights, even ordering our medication from Europe just to get some of these medications cheaper, it was going to be pretty much the same exact price as if we were to stay in the United States. So we thought going somewhere where the doctor is more knowledgeable, on top of his game, we decided to take the jump and actually go to Barbados, and we were pretty excited about it. And this doctor, he actually gave us hope in our future. One of the things, he had doubled Sarah's medication, and he was on top of all the new studies that were coming out. He knew exactly what was going on, and he was honest with us. So after a long day of travel, it was about 10 p.m. when we landed in Barbados, about here. We took maybe a half-hour taxi ride to our hometown where we were going to be in Hastings. It was in pitch dark. We were in a taxi where we couldn't understand the driver. And when we arrived, we had no idea what our surroundings looked like, but we just jumped in, went to bed, and got some rest. When we first walked out the door at like 8 a.m. that morning, we were hot. Like, I was expecting at least wear a sweatshirt. It was blazing hot, humid, and it was just a really big, surprise to us.
It was hot. There was no like cold,
Never.
like ever, ever. So we walk into the clinic, which also kind of surprised us because it looked like a house. It didn't look like your normal like clinic setting at all. But the moment we walked in, we were welcomed. From there, the doctor came in and got good old Wanda out, my favorite, and did the ultrasound. And he seemed to be happy with the results, but when he told me that I only had 6 follicles, my heart sank a little bit because I was on double the dose. I was anticipating that my body would respond a lot better, but it turns out it just didn't respond as well as we had hoped. And so from that moment, he actually explained like what diminished ovarian reserve was and how that actually worked, because no one else had really explained what that was, how it impacts someone like me.
Saddening to see that there was only 6, but at the same time, I think the doctor put it at ease in my mind that we were in the care of his hands and that we needed to trust him. And after that, I just remember us sitting down, just praying together, just praying that this was going to be our time where God had a future baby in our lives that we were going to have. And yeah, we just really had a good moment at that time. And I just remember us sitting there. Well, Sarah was laying in the bed and they were getting ready to take Sarah back.
Had all my IVs in, all the things.
Yeah, it felt like we waited there forever to have Sarah get taken back. I remember just saying a prayer and then walking to the waiting room. It was only about like 15 minutes later, the doctors came back and said that Sarah was in the recovery room, so I joined her. And I think at that time, seeing Sarah just waking up, just emotional. She had her gown on and, the IVs.
Sexy little hat and the booties and everything.
Just IVs in her arm. It was just like an emotional time seeing that we're actually going through this process together, but it was also exciting at the same time, just hopeful that the results were going to be what we wanted.
Mm-hmm. And so it was just really nice to have him by my side. And all of a sudden, the doctor comes in and tells us how many he had retrieved. And unfortunately, he only said 4. Knowing how this process works, 4 was just very devastating, especially with double the dosage and just like anticipation that like my body was going to respond differently. I feel like I just slept the rest of the time. Eventually like processed things. And then I remember the next day we went to the beach to just kind of unwind and all of that, waiting for the embryologist to give us a call.
Yes, and I think once we learned it was 4, we know the science and how it just diminishes so fast. And I think at that point, it just really hit us, and it's kind of an emotional roller coaster, just knowing our odds were a lot less than what we were hoping for. Still trying to hold on to hope, and I think that's where it was just being tough, being in the situation we were. Beautiful environment, but just knowing what's going on in the background is out of our hands, and just kind of having to be praying over the situation and hoping for the best outcome.
And then we got a call. Thankfully, Brady had service in Barbados from the embryologist saying that 2 fertilized. And so there you go, you dropped 50%. And so then we had to wait like 2 days or something before they would tell us if it grew to like the blastocyst stage. And out of the 2 that fertilized, only 1 was growing into that blastocyst stage, or like getting to that process. She then informed us that the very next day we would know if that became an embryo or not.
But when we landed in Dallas, that's when we turned on our phones. We were anticipating a phone call around that hour of the day. We were walking off the plane, and as soon as we got to the cockpit area, Sarah was in front of me, my phone started ringing in my pocket. And we quickly jumped off into the jet bridge, and we took the phone call.
We got out of the way of everybody. We're literally taking this phone call as people are walking past us.
And I put it on speaker so the both of us could hear. And yeah, just going through that process was really unnerving. We were excited and just finding out the news of what was happening with this embryo.
Unfortunately, the embryologist called and said that our only embryo did not make it. So we left Barbados with our hands empty and our hearts broken.
So after we heard the news, we still needed to make it to our next flight. I don't think there was a single word spoken to each other going to that next location. We needed to get some food in our stomachs. I think we kind of just
ate in silence.
Yeah, and it was just kind of zombie mode between us. I don't think we either knew how to feel ourselves and how to help the other person at the same time. I think we're just both in shock.
Yeah, we just grieved. It like that was our shot at a family, like our DNA, our the dreams that we had for our family, and it was all gone.
And we didn't have a plan B at this time. I mean, that was our go-to. That was going to be the start of our family, and we had all of our hopes and prayers in it. And I think we didn't even have a thought to even think of what's next at that time. It was kind of just going through the motions of going back to work and, I don't know, just trying to continue on. And you know, pretend like nothing happened.
Yeah. I think the hardest part for me was I was aching and my heart was aching, but you realize that the world around you doesn't even know. The world continues to flow. You have to go to work, you have to do all these things, but inside, like, you're feeling empty and you're feeling just all of the grief. And I think that was the hardest part, to like get back to feeling normal.
Yeah. And I would say the whole world continues on, but I think the biggest thing for me was the support between each other, because we both went through this process. We were going to be there to support each other, and I think just having that close connection with each other, being able to support each other, really helped out with the process. So even though our journey did not go as planned and how we wanted it to be, would we ever go to abroad again for IVF?
Yes. Under our circumstances, we didn't get the family that we were hoping from that experience, but that doesn't mean that the clinic was bad. The clinic was hands down the best clinic that we have ever been to. The people there were fantastic. The communication was above and beyond anything I had ever seen at any clinic. You were somebody to them. You weren't just a number trying to get through the clinic. You were somebody. We did that in 2024. In December of 2024, we got an email from our coordinator at Barbados, and she was asking how we were doing. We hadn't seen her since February. So what does that tell you? Like, months go by and they still care about you, your feelings, your mental sanity, everything. So yeah, I would definitely, I would go back. IVF is an unpredictable roller coaster, and we're still processing our journey, but we know we're not alone. And I hope that you know that you're not alone in this journey either. You can lean on us and we'll be there for you.
One of the experiences that I have as a memory was going down to the beach and picking sea glass. We spent hours upon hours just picking it up, and we actually put it into a picture frame, and it's just kind of a remembrance that when things are broken, you can always put them together into something beautiful.
If you're considering IVF abroad or even in Barbados and you have questions, leave a comment down below and we will make sure to answer any of those questions. Sometimes messy,
Always real.
Let's do it
this
together.
together.